Who was his father?
There was no father. I carried him, I gave birth, I raised him. I can't explain what happened.
Hey everyone, got a video for you today. This one is somewhat of a doozy, so you may want to sit down, kick back, relax, and don't kill the messenger. Let's check this thing out. Courtesy again of the great MSN. They say how Anakin Skywalker is actually a clone in Star Wars.
What?
You got that? How Anakin Skywalker is actually a clone in Star Wars. Let's see what they have to say. Cloning holds a vital place in Star Wars lore since the prequel trilogy, transforming how certain eras of George Lucas's beloved space operas are viewed. Generally speaking, the word clone in Star Wars is used to refer to a copy of Temuera Morrison's Jango Fett, who served as the generic template. Well, I don't think he liked generic, just saying. Template for the Grand Army of the Republic in the war against the droid forces of the Confederacy of the Independent Systems, aka the Separatists. You're beginning to sound like a separatist, Anakin. Grown on Kamino by the planet's native species, the Jango Fett clones were the result of experts doing what they do best. But they aren't the only characters who could be referred to as clones. Without the introduction of cloning tech in 2002's Star Wars Episode II, Attack of the Clones, the prequel trilogy could have been very different. Not only that, but clone-centric spin-off shows like Star Wars The Clone Wars and Star Wars The Bad Batch wouldn't have been possible. Cloning was also a central but divisive part of 2019 Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker. Oh, that wasn't the only thing divisive about it. With the trope allowing Ian McDiarmid's Emperor Sheev Palpatine to somehow return. For the finale of the sequel trilogy. However, although cloning largely has Kaminoan roots in Star Wars canon, 1999 Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, provided an alternate route for a clone to enter the story. It's very easy to argue that Anakin Skywalker is a clone of his mother. Anakin shares 100% of his DNA with Shmi Skywalker. Clones don't have biological parents in the traditional sense. While a mother and father each contribute DNA to an offspring, clones arise from the DNA of a single individual. In Star Wars, this generally results in all the clones of Jango Fett looking exactly like Temuera Morrison, which makes sense. There are, however, certain outliers among Fett's clones. The most prominent example is the main characters in The Bad Batch, who all look and sound slightly different from Jango Fett. Well, they're the Bad Batch. They're kind of like a poor copy of a copy of a copy.
I like pizza.
Despite being genetically identical to the regular clones, often referred to as regs. In The Phantom Menace, when Liam Neeson's Qui-Gon Jinn asks Shmi Skywalker, Pernilla August, who Anakin's father is, she replies, "There was no father that I know of. I carried him. I gave birth. I can't explain what happened." Maybe she just got drunk and went on a bender with a Jedi. Oh, I didn't say that. It initially seems as though Shmi isn't speaking literally, and that perhaps Anakin's father abandoned them, and so she has chosen to forget about him. However, it quickly becomes clear that Shmi isn't being poetic. She's just explaining she somehow conceived Anakin entirely on her own. This has long been established as Star Wars canon, which means Anakin came into existence with only Shmi's DNA in his genetic makeup. This has led some to argue that Anakin could be viewed as kind of a clone, though this is not how the saga defines him. Shmi plays a role similar to that of Jango Fett, who agreed to serve as the template for the clone army. Star Wars already explained how Anakin can be a male clone of Shmi Skywalker. Let's read that again. Star Wars already explained how Anakin can be a male clone of Shmi Skywalker. Oh boy, here we go. Omega. So here we go, folks. We're heading into Disney territory, so I don't blame you if you bail out on the video at this point, but here we go. We're going in. Omega proves that it's possible. In reality, cloning is an incredibly complex science that isn't achievable on the same scale as it is in sci-fi stories like Star Wars. The saga has simplified the process of harvesting DNA from an individual, feeding it into a machine, and then producing an army of identical clones whose growth rates and personalities can be altered to suit. Well, it's sci-fi. That said, Star Wars The Bad Batch shook things up with the reveal that Omega, Michelle Ang, was actually a female clone of Jango Fett. This was likely achieved by the Kaminoans duplicating Jango Fett's X chromosome, resulting in Omega being born female rather than male. In other words, Omega still had no genetic material than that of Jango Fett, although it was toyed with a little. Star Wars lore confirms that the Force was partially responsible for Anakin being born. In kickstarting Shmi's pregnancy, it's not a totally wild thought that such a manipulation could have transformed one of the X chromosomes in Shmi's 2X pair into a Y. Those born female don't carry a Y chromosome. Still, with the Force being to blame, I almost thought that was going to say with the Force being female. Anyway, let me start that over. Still, with the Force being to blame for Anakin's pregnancy, it's easier to explain this intricate transformation. Oh boy, transformation. We're really getting into some sketchy territory. Anyway, intricate transformation because of the fantastical element rather than a more scientific approach adopted on Kamino. Anakin being a clone changes the Skywalker family tree. No Shmi is now Luke's aunt. Okay, we're going to read on. Although there were obviously other Skywalkers who existed before Shmi, they've never been addressed in any meaningful way. So she is essentially the starting point for her family tree. While she certainly raised Anakin as her son, both characters would share the same genetic blueprint under this theory. So calling them mother and son doesn't quite add up. If anything, because they have inherited the same mix of DNA from Shmi's parents, Anakin is more like a brother to her than a son. The clone army is obviously a similar mindset, as they often refer to one another as brothers. Assuming this to be true for a second, then Anakin does have a father. It's whoever Shmi's father was. Similarly, Anakin's true mother is whoever gave birth to Shmi. Moving forward, every link in the familial chain also shifts. For example, Shmi has long been assumed to be Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, and Leia's, Carrie Fisher, grandmother. But if Shmi is technically Anakin's sister, then she would be the aunt of the Skywalker twins. Similarly, while Shmi would once have been Padme's, Natalie Portman, late mother-in-law, the Clone War means they're actually sisters-in-law. Jeez. Moving even further into the Star Wars sequel trilogy, oh geez, why would we want to do that? The shakeup continues. Adam Driver's Kylo Ren / Ben Solo was introduced in 2015's The Force Awakens. And accepting that Shmi was Anakin's mother meant that, as Leia's son, Ben was Shmi's great-grandson. Reworking things to make Shmi and Anakin genetic siblings means Kylo Ren would still be Anakin's grandson, but Driver's character would actually be Shmi's great-nephew. It's a little bit of a mind-bender, yeah, I'll say, though, which is why it's probably easier to accept Star Wars' most notorious family for how it has always been structured, even if it's not technically correct. Geez, that was some article, wasn't it? Holy smokes, I don't know. I mean, I guess looking back at we got brother kissing sister, sister kissing brother, and sisters saying, I've known somehow. I've always known. I don't know. I guess it makes sense. I guess it doesn't make sense. In this day and age, I don't know what makes sense anymore. What do you folks think? You like this article? You hate this article? Let me know in the comments below. And you know what? We'll just blame it on the Kaminoans. It's all their fault, ladies and gentlemen. So if you would, please be so kind to do all that cool YouTube stuff like, share, subscribe. And like I said, leave a comment. It helps with that YouTube algorithm and pushes the channel forward. And after you do all of that there stuff, don't forget to take care of yourself, take care of each other. And why? Take it easy when you can take it, well, I guess like the Skywalker family, sleazy.
Light, pursue night, grasp your prey, hold on tight, dreamless peace is what you get, say your prayers.